Glad we could work this out finally, and thanks for joining us this afternoon.
Hey, man, no problem, man. Again, my phone, I don't know what happened. All I got was your text message, but I never got no phone.
Oh, yeah, see, these phones are a little, they kind of, in 864 numbers, they act different. Just need to go back to a basic, simple phone where it's all simple, but technology, not my thing. But just tell us a little bit about what you do for the ClemsonInsider.com.
Well, I'm a senior writer for the Clemson Insider, and I've been here for 2 years now, going on about 2 years now. Before that, I was over at Ipsay Media and was the editor there, and then, of course, worked in various newspapers and stuff across South Carolina and Georgia prior to that. So, been doing this a long time, and like I said, I've been covering Clemson for 10 years, and I've enjoyed every minute of it.
Right, and first off, obviously, it is the football offseason, but some big news coming out this week with spring practice starting, and then the 4 suspensions for the Georgia game. And obviously, we were talking about a little earlier, 2 of the guys, David Beasley and Corey Crawford, played at Carver and Columbus, where I'm actually from. But it kind of disappointing and shocking to hear. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I was surprised, as everybody else was. We're just sitting there in the press conference, and Dabo goes through his whole spiel that he always does with his opening statement and all, and he gets about 10, 15 minutes in, and then he's like, oh, yeah, one more thing, I got some disciplinary thing, and then, so we don't know what he's going to say. Somebody suspended for spring practice game or whatever, and he throws out there that 4 guys are suspended for the Georgia game, and I think all of us with the media guys were stunned, and then to hear 2 of them were starters, and another, Gary Peters is a guy who basically is like a starter himself. All 4 guys are contributors to this team, 2 on offense, 2 on defense, and, it just really kind of took all of us by surprise a little bit.
Yeah, it really did, and obviously with Corey Crawford coming back for his senior year. But what did Dabo have to say about Beasley? Had he lost his starting job, from what I was hearing? Was he not going to be first team going into, spring or summer drills? Or?
Well, that's something, kind of got to look into. I know Eric McLean started practice at left guard, which is where Beasley was last year. But you got to remember the right guard position is open as well. And he talked about Kalen Davis moving out to tackle. So I would imagine that David Beasley is going to be fighting some for that left guard and that right guard position. So I think Beasley's still a starter, and I think he will start when the season begins. I shouldn't say begins, the second game of the season. I think he probably starts. So I'm wondering if they're looking at more McLean at playing that left guard position. Maybe they think he fits better there. Beasley's a guy that can play both and has proven he can play both. So maybe they put Beasley over at right guard, as the person who replaces Tyler Shatley.
Right, and going back a little while ago, I think you wrote some articles for TCI talking about the contract that Dabo got through 2021. Just give us your thoughts about that. I know it's a little bit of old news, but just what's your opinion on that?
Well, I think it's a good move for Clemson, and I understand why Dabo wanted to do it. First of all, what you got to understand in this business that, coaches, their contracts are kind of going up. And I think if you're Clemson and you got a head coach who's, going to the Orange Bowl and is winning ACC championships and is constantly got your team up in the top 10, then, if the highest paid coach in your league is making $4 million a year, then your head coach needs to be right up there with him. And, of course, I'm talking about Jimbo Fisher at Florida State. He's pulling about $4 million this year. So Dabo's just a little bit behind Jimbo. He's the second highest paid coach in the ACC, or third highest paid coach in the ACC, behind Louisville's head coach. So, that's about where he needs to be. And I think it's just more or less showing Dabo some love, because Dabo in the years past has used his money, the money that he's earned for winning an ACC championship or winning 10 games or going to a BCS Bowl. He's taking that money and giving it to his assistant coaches so they could get raises. Well, I think it was kind of time for Clemson to show Dabo a little love and get him up there as one of the top highest paid coaches in the country, which he's in. I think, as far as BCS schools, he's in the top 10, and I think he's in the top 15 overall. So I think it's well-deserved, and it helps with recruiting. It shows how Clemson is committed to Dabo Swinney, and they're committed to this football program. So I think, it's only a good thing for Clemson as they keep moving forward.
Yeah, Will, we're looking at the spring game coming up on April 12th, and the first spring practice actually just occurred on Wednesday. So what can you tell us went on at the spring practice? Any new developments in terms of the freshmen and how they performed, or some of the upperclassmen, what they did?
Well, we don't get to watch much of it. We were there for about an hour the other day, and so they don't really let the media see too much. We saw a little bit of the tempo offense, Cole Stout running a little bit, Chad Kelly. They look good running it as we expect they should, because these two guys have been, here 3 and 2 years respectively, and they know this offense, they understand it, and so you expect that from them. Of course, everybody's curious about Deshaun Watson. What does he look like? And he had his good moments and his bad moments. I think he had a typical first practice. Had a lot of nerves and was going through those emotions. And but at the same time, talking to Chad Kelly, talking to Cole Stout, and talking to Coach Morris and Devin Sweeney, they all kind of said the same thing, that he came to practice prepared. He looks like he knows what he's doing. He feels very confident. I think Chad Kelly said he's calm. And that's the first thing he noticed about him. He's very calm. He doesn't seem like he gets rattled easy. I think, when you look at the wide receivers, those guys, those 3 young men that came in that are on campus now, they all look like they're supposed to, I guess, in first practice. Again, they're running around in shorts, so it's hard to tell who's good. And so I was impressed with looking at the defensive tackles and the things they were doing, and obviously the linebackers. I watched them closely, especially with Register out there, and seeing how they were doing. It's very interesting. There's a couple things to watch this year, especially with those freshmen that came in, and it's going to be pretty cool to see what these young men do here in the spring, and if they are going to be able to contribute when the fall gets here.
Right, and obviously moving away from football a little bit, let's talk about Tiger basketball and the year they've had, and obviously been able to close out some games much different than last year. I know Brownell said it on Tuesday night, how much one of the guys asked him about, finally finishing some games, and they have been able to this year. And just talk about the game Saturday, and what kind of chances do you think this team has of possibly making the big dance?
Well, I tell you, when I look at this Clemson basketball team at the beginning of the year, and I think if you ask anybody who covers Clemson or covers the Atlantic Coast Conference, would Clemson be a team that would win 10 conference games this year? And I think anybody would have laughed at you. I think, it was just one of those things where I think, for me personally, I thought this team could win 17 games at the beginning of the year. I thought maybe 7 or 8 ACC games max, because they were close last year to winning a couple games, but they always couldn't make those free throws or get that clutch basket down the stretch that really cost them in several games. So I felt like they could improve. If they did those things, they could win 17 games, at the most. I mean, that was at the most I had them. I didn't see a team that had a chance to win 40 games. I didn't see a team that had a chance to make the NCAA tournament. I didn't see a Clemson team that would win 10 ACC games, now maybe 11 if they win them all, and finish in 5th place. So this team has really surprised me and has exceeded all my expectations. I think KJ McDaniels, his gradual improvement each year has been phenomenal, and it kind of shows you how good of a coach Brad Brownell is. I mean, he can take a player who's raw athletically, but has a lot of things to work on fundamentally, and make him into a first-team All-ACC caliber player. It kind of tells you the kind of coach he is. And that's why, in my opinion, I think he's the better ACC coach of the year. This is a team that's supposed to be 14th when the season started. The media picked them, and they're going to finish 5th. I think they got a very good chance if they can finish 5th place. He can beat Pittsburgh. I think they got a very good chance to make a nice little run in the ACC tournament, because I like the matchups that they would have on their side of the bracket. All teams that they've had success against, and know that, and you feel like they have a chance to beat all those teams. So, I think Brownell, what he's done and his coaching staff has done has been outstanding to get these guys to believe in themselves and believe that they can be a contender in the ACC, and that's exactly what they've done.
Yeah, Will, you talked about the great job that Brownell has done, and that McDaniels is really just becoming a consistent player. And then you talked about the ACC tournament, and that's where my next question is going to go. If Clemson is able to get the win Saturday against Pittsburgh, how many games do you think they need to win in the ACC tournament to get an NCAA bid? Or is that even still possible in your mind?
Well, yeah, I think it's very possible. I think Clemson's right there on the bubble on the outside looking in right now. And, just talking to some guys who do this for a living, that they study the NCAA tournament and they study the RPI rankings and all those things. I think the consensus is Clemson, if they get to the semifinals of the SEC tournament, which would mean probably beating a Duke or Syracuse, as well as win that Thursday game, that would mean they get to the semifinals, and they think they would get in that case. They would definitely get into the NCAA tournament. I still think that to be true as well. I think if they win on Thursday, that they beat Pitt and finish fifth, and they win that Thursday game, I think they're in good shape. They're going to give themselves a chance. I don't know it's enough to get them in. I think if they can go and beat a Duke or a Syracuse in the second round and advance to the semifinals, then I think I think all bets are off. I think they're a tournament team. And then if they play Virginia, like I said, I talked about the matchups. All right, look at it. The number one seed is Virginia. I think Clemson lost to I think by 6 points here at home without Landry Noko. And I think Noko is a difference maker in that game. I think Clemson wins that game if Landry Noko plays. Then they play possibly Syracuse in that bracket, a Syracuse team that they were down by only 5 points to, up at Syracuse, and a Syracuse team who's trending down, is not playing very well right now. Definitely a team I think Clemson can beat. And then you look at obviously who they play on Thursday. Is any team any of those teams down there, Georgia Tech or those guys, they know they can beat them. They can have success against them. So the bracket's very favorable as Clemson goes through. So if they can finish fifth, they got a chance. And even if Duke finishes with that number 4 seed, you still like Clemson a little bit, maybe not as much because they got to go to Greensboro and play Duke, so it would be really a home court advantage for Duke. However, I like Clemson's chances still because they beat Duke as bad as they did up here. If Duke can't make baskets, and Clemson's got a great chance to win that game because they're just more physical than Duke and they got more of a post-game presence than Duke.
Yeah, definitely. And you also saw that with Duke losing this week to Wake Forest. Obviously, they struggle when they don't make three-point shots. But before we let you get out of it, once again, we're joined by Will Vandervort from the Clemson Insider. Let you get to football practice and obviously the baseball game tonight. Just talk a little bit about the book you wrote that y'all have republished, Clemson, Where the Tigers Play. Obviously, it was with Bob Bradley, longtime voice of the Clemson Tigers, who passed away in 2000. And then y'all have, I think you've redone it here with Sam Blackman and Chuck Creasy. And just talk about that a little bit and what kind of project that was for you.
Well, it was a project that started for me, it started a couple of years ago, about 2 years ago. Sam Blackman asked me if I wanted to join in the book, and I told him I would. He asked me to replace Mr. B. Mr. B, as you mentioned, longtime sports information director at Clemson, and did a great job. Mr. B is the reason why Clemson is known around the world. He really did a good job publicizing this university and its athletic department, and during the Coach Howard days and all the way through Danny Ford. And, just an outstanding job Mr. B did. And so, Sam asked me would I want to replace Mr. B on this project. And, of course, I was honored because, anybody who gets to work, first of all, with Sam Blackman, who's been in sports information for many years and is well-respected, you get to work alongside him, and then you get to work alongside Mr. B, replace Mr. B, and a guy who's a living legend at Clemson. He's on the Ring of Honor. That tells you how much people respected him at Clemson, they put him on the Ring of Honor in football. And then of course, working with Coach Creasy, and Coach was a longtime tennis coach here, went to many Final Fours, won many ACC championships as the tennis coach at Clemson. So 3 legends. And then I get to be, here I am, just a lowly old sports writer to join these guys and write this book. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. I wrote the football sections, the baseball sections, and the men's basketball and women's tennis sections, and I really enjoyed doing it. I had fun. It was a lot of work, as anybody who's ever written a book understands that. But it's a book about Clemson sports, and what makes it special is it allows the younger generations, such as yourselves, to kind of understand what Clemson's all about, what makes Clemson so special, why we all love Clemson the way that we do. And that's the biggest thing I got out of this book. And I hope if people haven't bought it yet, they would go buy one and really read it. It's something you can put on your coffee table. It's got history all the way dating back all the way from 1896, the very first baseball game at Clemson, which was the first athletic event on the campuses at Clemson University. And then all the way to, last year on 4th and 16 against LSU. So it's pretty updated. The only thing that's not in there right now is this football season that just completed. So, if anybody wants to know anything about Clemson athletics, it's definitely the book to get, and it'll last for a while. It's something that will, again, in a few years, probably we'll go back and update it again. So it was definitely a fun project, and it was a blast doing it.
Right, and I think all of you guys did a wonderful job with it. It's a great book. It would look great on anybody's coffee table or bookshelf, or any Clemson Tiger people would know that you are a Clemson Tiger. But thanks again, Will. We appreciate it. We'll get you back on here, and let's get over to the baseball and then football practices today. But thanks again. We appreciate the time.
Hey, man, thanks for having me. Anytime you guys need it, man. I love talking about Clemson sports, and so it's always one of my favorite subjects, and I guess I know a little something about it.
That's right.